me to stop, and I imagine I have a little bit of time left when the debate resumes after question period.
Yes, the honourable member will have 2 minutes and roughly 30 seconds, plus 5 minutes of questions and comments. We'll now move to statements by members, déclaration des députés, and ironically, the first statement is by the member for Nanaimo, Alberni.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Back on a different subject. Mr. Speaker, many Canadians are shocked that law societies across the country voted to discriminate against Trinity Western University law graduates. Compounding the alarm is the revelation that it's big banks and big money interests led by the Bank of Montreal that influence the law societies. BMO and other large banks and corporations have been requiring legal and financial service contractors to reveal the diversity metrics of their associates, partners, and management teams. Shameful. The initiative, branded Legal Leaders for Diversity, is apparently opposed to religious diversity. Mr. Speaker, asking a prospective employee about their sexual preferences would be against the law. Denying economic opportunity to any individual or any law firm based on religious belief is just as surely a charter violation. The Supreme Court of Canada and now the Nova Scotia Supreme Court have ruled against such religious discrimination. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect our banks and our leading corporations to respect the charter rights and freedoms of all Canadians. We call on the BMO and its recruits from corporate Canada to reverse this misguided initiative.
Déclaration.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. For Canada and my region of Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, the forestry industry is vitally important but fragile. We have no choice. We have to innovate. Unfortunately, the Conservative government's forestry innovation is something they've disengaged from, and this is jeopardizing the future for our communities. The NSERC forestry sector R&D initiative, for example, will not be renewed by the government and will end in 32 days. There is also the $90 million over 4 years that was in the last budget under investments for helping the forestry industry, but the money is already gone. The industry needs $500 million over 6 years, so the federal government has to do more. The forest and forestry was vital to my ancestors and is still important for forestry communities. The government must do more.
That's the honourable member for Whitby, Oshawa.
Sorry, is this me? Yes. Me? Yeah. So sorry. Mr. Speaker, from February the 13th to March the 1st, athletes from all of our provinces and territories are participating in the 2015 Canada Winter Games in Prince George, British Columbia. And it's a pleasure for me to rise in the House today to send my best wishes to the coaches, volunteers, and the nearly 2,400 athletes that are participating in the 2015 Canada Games. In particular, Mr. Speaker, I would like to extend my warmest wishes and congratulations to the 10 athletes from Whitby, Oshawa. Our community is very proud of Ryan McGill, Jessica Klimkate, Brad Langlois, Ethan Vandersanden, Lindsay Barbosa, Tyler Ronald Jackson, Innsbruck Richards, Gibson Himbo, Melanie Donald, and Hisham Mohammed for their participation in the Winter Games. Congratulations to all.
The honourable member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Mr. Speaker, I regret to inform the House of the passing of Terry Kelly from Oshawa last month. I first met Terry when he offered me a job as an Ardling student. As many of you will know, Ardling is slightly different, only slightly removed from indentured servitude. Not with Terry. He was generous with his time, wise in his advice, and reasonable in his expectations. Terry was Durham's super lawyer. In the morning, he would dominate the criminal docket, and in the afternoon, the civil one. Terry is also known as Superfan. His idea of a good time was to go to 7 different cities on 7 different nights and watch 7 different sporting events. His idea of a quiz was to name the All England starting lineup for the 1956 World Cup, and if you got that, then it asked you to name the substitutes. Not only was Terry a super lawyer and a super fan, but he was also a super citizen. His support for various civic projects are too numerous to list. Oshawa and Durham lost their biggest civic booster when Terry died. His generosity of time and spirit touched us all. Mr. Speaker, please join me in recognizing a life well lived, a superfan, a super lawyer, and a super citizen, wise and generous to the end.
Super.
Thank you.
Super.
The honourable member for Vegreville, Wainwright.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our right to freedom of religion was recently questioned by the law societies and national banks across this country. Once again, law students at Trinity Western University were under threat of being barred from practicing in Canada simply because of their religion. Let me be clear. Because they believe in God, they were being told that they had no right to be lawyers in this country. Clearly, neither the Law Society nor the Bank of Montreal have any right to deny Canadians the right to practice law because of their religious views. And thank God, Trinity Western has defeated this most recent discriminatory attack. It is unacceptable that organizations such as the Bank of Montreal and members of the Law Society have attempted to undermine this most fundamental of rights. Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms confirms and protects, Mr. Speaker, our religious freedoms in this country, and that includes, Mr. Speaker, the religious freedoms of Christians.
The honourable member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Mr. Speaker, I will be attending, along with the Leader of the Opposition, official opposition, and other New Democrat MPs, the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada annual conference in Toronto this weekend. Now, as you know, mining is a very important part of Northern and Northwestern Ontario's economy, and new investment in this sector is needed more than ever. Why? Well, because nearly every other sector in our economy is in crisis or on the verge. The forestry sector has lost more than 38,000 jobs in Northern Ontario alone since this government came to power. And in Thunder Bay, Rainy River, we've seen hundreds of jobs lost in forestry and other sectors. 240 jobs were lost with the closure of Resolute's pulp and paper mill in Fort Frances. 46 jobs were cut at Wasaya Airlines on the Fort William First Nation. 160 jobs were announced last week at Teleperformance in Thunder Bay, and 200 jobs will be lost at our Target store in Thunder Bay. We urgently need new investment in our fledgling mining projects, especially the $50 billion Ring of Fire project. As we head to the PDAC meetings this weekend, it's clearer than ever that the families of Northern and Northwestern Ontario want and need an active and engaged federal government that finally puts their interests first.
The honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government has made it a priority to continue to take concrete actions to strengthen Canadians' confidence in our criminal justice system. That is why I am pleased that earlier this month our Prime Minister announced that we are moving forward with new legislation to better protect Canadians from serious criminals who are released into our communities across the country after serving only 2/3 of their sentence under the current system of statutory release. We have all heard of criminals who go on to reoffend, sometimes violently. There are too many criminals who commit serious offences while on statutory release, and Canadians refuse to accept this. This legislation will ensure that repeat violent criminals will no longer be automatically granted statutory release after serving 2/3 of their sentence. This upcoming legislation will see that the most serious criminals are kept off our street for as long as possible. I'm proud of our government's strong action to keep our streets and communities safe and placing the rights of victims ahead of those of criminals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Oak Ridges, Markham.
I rise to pay special tribute to Geraldine Seeley, a close personal friend who recently lost her battle with cancer. Jerry was a fighter. She fought and beat cancer once before. She overcame a kidney transplant, and even with the challenges she faced, she never lost her faith or love of life. Jerry married Dennis in 1969, and to see them together was truly special. They were a great team who, until the end, were inseparable. But as much as we mourn her loss, we can also be inspired by her example. Jerry never stopped giving back to the community, and despite the challenges she faced, always found time for others. Although only 67, she volunteered over 45 years at our community's Markham Fair. She was a member of the church choir, a junior choir leader, and hosted Bible studies in her home and facilitated others at her church. Mr. Speaker, a full day would not be enough to explain the many ways in which she touched the lives of the people around her. To her entire family, I say thank you for sharing Jerry with us. She will not soon be forgotten. Thank you.
The honourable member for Halifax.
This Saturday, the Moncton Lumber Smacks take on the Rock Coast Rollers from Maine. And Mr. Speaker, this is a really big deal. Not only is roller derby the fastest growing women's sport in the world, and not only are the Lumber Smacks the #1 derby team in Atlantic provinces, but this bout will make history as the first ever WIFTA-sanctioned bout in Atlantic Canada. Roller derby is about competition, strength, and athletics, but it's also about community. I am a proud member of the Anchor City Rollers in Halifax, and ACR is thrilled to cheer on the success of our Lumber Smacks sisters. And in the true spirit of community, the Smacks have players from New Brunswick, PEI, and Nova Scotia, including Anchor City's own star jammer and blocker, Smashy and Box Blocker. As usual in Derby, this is a community effort bringing together multiple leagues, their tireless volunteers, and their amazing fans with big Derby love from Halifax, from Anchor City, and from the House of Commons. Lumber Smacks, vous l'avez. You got this.
The honourable member for Edmonton, Millwoods, Beaumont.
Mr. Speaker, in less than 100 days, Vancouver, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Montreal, and Moncton will welcome the world when the FIFA Women's World Cup begins. This competition is the largest in women's sports, featuring 24 nations from around the globe, and we look forward to welcoming them and the approximately 1.5 million spectators who will take part in the festivities. Having the best of the best in women's soccer competing here on Canadian soil will inspire women and girls to realize the benefits of physical activity and sport. This is a big year for sports in Canada, and our government remains committed to helping Canadians get fit and active. That's why we first introduced the Children's Fitness Tax Credit, then doubled it last year, allowing more families to get their kids involved in organized sports. To our Canadian women's soccer team, we are proud of you, and we wish you all the best in your quest for gold this summer. Know that all of Canada is behind you.
The honourable member for Hochelaga. In a few days, it will be International Women's Day and the start of the 2015 Women's March, the theme of which will be freedom for our bodies and our territories. As in other years, this is an opportunity to realize how far women still are from full equality around the world, but also in Canada. It is the ideal time to remind certain conservatives that are still in the dinosaur age that we deserve choice when it comes to our bodies. It's also an opportunity to add our voice to those of all women mobilizing against the erosion of the social safety net we worked so hard to build in Canada, and of which women are often the victims. Certainly women have made progress over the past few years, but our bodies, careers, and lives still don't belong entirely to us. All women need to be free, and until then, we will all march, and I'm proud of all women.
The member for Moncton, Riverview, Dieppe.
Mr. Speaker, New Brunswickers are deeply concerned about an apparent Liberal plan that will permit the New Brunswick provincial Liberals to increase taxes and put tolls on roads without consulting New Brunswickers with a referendum. Well, Mr. Speaker, that's what Liberals consistently do, raise taxes and take monies from hard-working New Brunswickers and Canadians. At the federal level, in addition to the Liberal carbon tax, which will raise the cost of gas, groceries, and literally everything, it has been exposed that the Liberal federal leader, is even looking at reversing, if you can believe it, the doubling of the Children's Fitness Tax Credit. No. Perhaps only someone with a trust fund would understand how middle-class families can accept to pay higher taxes and higher costs on everything. We reject the high-tax Liberal plan. We have introduced the GST reduction. We have introduced pension splitting. We have tax-free savings accounts. We have implemented the family tax cut, which will provide 100% of Canadian families with more monies in their pockets. Wow. That's where the money belongs, Mr. Speaker, in the hand of hard-working Canadians, and we stand up for lower taxes, as do they.
The honourable member for Sydney, Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the contributions and dedications of Father Paul Abbas. Father Abbas is a good friend of mine. I've known him for 35 years, back when he was first ordained to priesthood. He was my local parish priest and works in many communities across Cape Breton. He's well known for helping men suffering from addiction and his commitment for helping the youth. Father Abbas has been instrumental with the Talbot House in French Vale. Talbot House is a place for hope and healing for men struggling with addiction. The men receive the help that they need to get a fresh start. And I had the honour of being on the board of directors with him. Father Abbas is retiring from Talbot House, and he's leaving it in great shape. He is a man that never stops, and even as he retires from the Talbot House, he plans to continue to give spiritual guidance to many in our community, and he's currently overseeing 7 parishes. I ask my colleagues to join me today in thanking Father Abbas for his many years of tireless service to those who are most vulnerable in our communities.
The honourable member for Don Valley East.
Mr. Speaker, it should come as no surprise that our Conservative government is the only one that stands up for middle-class Canadian families. Through our intensive low-tax plan, our government has managed to help 100% of families receive the benefits that they need so that they can put their hard-earned money towards their own priorities. We've doubled the Children's Fitness Tax Credit, enhanced the Universal Childcare Benefit, and now we have implemented the Family Tax Cut. All parents, including single parents, will benefit from our Family Tax Cut. That's over 4 million families and over 7 million parents, Mr. Speaker. Meanwhile, the Liberals and the NDP's idea for Canadians is high taxes and high debt. They will take away our benefits and implement a job-killing carbon tax that will raise the price of everything. Mr. Speaker, the facts are crystal clear. Only our Conservative government can be trusted to keep money in the pockets of Canadian families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, it's been a long time that the Canadians have learned that they have to judge politicians by their walk and not their talk. Yesterday, we heard that there were difficulties with the bilingualism, but the Liberals, including the member for Saint-Laurent-Cartierville, said this wasn't a problem. The Liberals have only asked 20% of their questions in French. Luckily, the NDP is here. We are making progress. Now, officers of Parliament have to be bilingual. We are working on other bilingual issues, and we are working hard to promote better funding for the CBC and Radio-Canada. We know that we have to have the walk and the talk, but the Liberals and Conservatives don't uphold those values.
The honourable member for Glengarry Prescott Russell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, Canadians learned of the passing of World War II veteran, retired Colonel Ernest Côté. Mr. Côté served as platoon commander in the Royal 22nd Regiment and later in the headquarters of the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division, ultimately being promoted to colonel. He was a senior planner for the invasion of Normandy and landed on Juno Beach on D-Day. He then deployed to Nijmegen during the liberation of the Netherlands. After his time in uniform, Mr. Côté continued to serve Canada as the Deputy Minister of Veterans Affairs. The courage and dedication of Canadians, like Mr. Côté, who have fought valiantly over the years to defend our freedom and rights, have made it possible for us to live in a peaceful, democratic country where we enjoy the best quality of life in the world. As a veteran myself, and as the Parliamentary Secretary for Veterans Affairs, I ask all Canadians to join me in thanking Ernest Côté and his family for his exemplary service and sacrifice to Canada. Thank you, Mr.
Question orale, oral questions. The honourable member for Halifax.
Today, family members of 1,200 missing and murdered Indigenous women are meeting in Ottawa to try once again to make the ministers of Aboriginal Affairs and the status of women understand the importance of taking joint action and calling a national public inquiry to end this violence. So instead of blaming First Nations communities for its own inaction, will the government finally listen to them?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Status of Women.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as you are aware, the Ministers for Status of Women and Aboriginal Affairs are at the round table. But I'd like to make it very clear that we do not support the national inquiry. There have been more than 40 studies on the plight of missing and murdered Aboriginal women, and now is not the time for more study. Now is the time for action, and we need to make sure that the police catch those responsible and ensure those are punished. Our government has taken strong action to address the broader problems facing Aboriginal women, which includes the introduction of matrimonial property rights for Aboriginal on reserves. Both opposition parties voted against that, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, they're trying to blame this crisis solely on Indigenous men, and it's shameful. Many of these women and girls met their fate in major cities. Some of the worst perpetrators, including Robert Picton, were not Aboriginal. Mayors and premiers, Indigenous leaders and concerned Canadians from around the country, coast to coast to coast, we have heard the call for an inquiry into this heartbreaking tragedy. So instead of blaming Indigenous communities, will the government finally commit to a national public inquiry?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No, we won't commit to a national inquiry. There have been more than 40 studies. As I said, if we had a national inquiry, it would be one more study sitting on a shelf. The action plan that the minister tabled in September is a good action plan, and it addresses issues that will combat violence against Aboriginal women and girls, and they should support us.
Absolutely.
The honourable member for Alfred Pell for Halifax.
Launched Bill C-51 at a splashy event. He was asked about the lack of oversight in the bill, and his response was that the legislative process is the, quote, first and foremost critical aspect of parliamentary oversight of these new powers. Well, that's funny, because the Conservatives have spent the past month trying to get around just that. Why did the Prime Minister tell Canadians that he wanted a thorough review when the Conservative plan all along was to shut down debate?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Public Safety and National Security.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 hours of an NDP filibuster yesterday and in the first committee, the committee was finally able to agree on a schedule for the study of the Anti-Terrorism Act 2015. We look forward on this side to hear from over 50 expert witnesses, including both the Minister of Public Safety and the Minister of Justice. We are ensuring that this legislation will be passed despite the opposition from the NDP. Mr. Speaker, Canadians would expect no less.
The honourable member for Alfred Pellin. The Government of Quebec is concerned about certain elements of Bill C-51. The Quebec Minister of Justice is wondering whether C-51 respects the rights and freedoms that are protected under the Charter. This should remind the Conservative government that it cannot act alone and that it is important to scrutinize Bill C-51 at length. For once, Mr. Speaker, will the Conservatives finally heed the Government of Quebec's call?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we were able to get through committee yesterday after an NDP filibuster with the aim of the NDP to stop this legislation from even coming to committee. We will be pleased to hear from over 50 expert witnesses in this area. This bill is very clear. There are protections in this bill that will protect the very issue that the NDP member is talking about, and I look forward to hearing from each and every one of those witnesses.
The honourable member for Alfred Pellin.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Conservative government has made a habit of ignoring Quebec's requests on this kind of thing. Remember the Omnibus Bill C-10 on crime? The Conservatives insisted on going forward before finally realizing that they needed Quebec and the provinces to enforce their bill. Instead of rushing C-51 through a committee, will the Conservatives learn lessons from the past and ensure that they consult all stakeholders concerned by Bill C-51?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, in committee we were more than accommodating to the NDP requests. We have pleased to announce to the House and to all members in this House that we will hear from a slate of over 50 expert witnesses. But it doesn't surprise me for a moment that the NDP would try and obstruct this very important legislation coming before the House. They want to stop it from committee. This is the party that voted against the Combating Terrorism Act, an act that would make it illegal for those to travel overseas to engage in terrorism. They are fundamentally opposed to revoking passports, and they do not believe that someone should have their citizenship stripped if they commit terrorism in this country.
The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the status quo on the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls cannot simply continue. Indigenous leaders, premiers, the families of victims are in Ottawa today to discuss a coordinated action plan to end this epidemic of violence. They are looking for a federal partner. They are calling for new federal funding, and they are calling for a national public inquiry. Will this government finally listen, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Status of Women.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud of our action plan that the Minister tabled in September. We will continue to work with communities to develop safety plans to raise awareness and take measures to empower Aboriginal women and girls. We are developing more community safety plans on and off reserves, including regions identified specifically by the RCMP. This action plan, Mr. Speaker, will also raise awareness to break intergenerational cycles of violence, engage men and boys, and it will address underlying causes of violence through structured training initiatives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg North.
Mr. Speaker, this is a national crisis that is getting worse, and the same old talking points are an insult to the victims and their families. What the government claims to be action are a series of general justice measures not targeted specifically at Indigenous women and girls. They are limited existing programs that have failed to stop the violence and inadequate funding commitments that are recycled from 2010. Will the government stop defending their failed approach and work towards a coordinated effort to put an end to violence, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This action plan brings together many measures to combat violence against Aboriginal women and girls. In addition to the $25 million over 5 years, it includes support for shelters and preventative activities and a DNA database for missing persons, which represents an additional investment. Mr. Speaker, this action plan clearly demonstrates our government's commitment to combating all forms of violence against Canada's Aboriginal women and girls, and it would be nice if the opposition would support that.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Laurent-Cartierville. Mr. Speaker, in 1984, 8% of murdered women in Canada were Aboriginals, and today that number is at close to 1/4, 23%, a troubling increase. This government is putting forward unsubstantiated hypotheses on the causes of this tragedy. It is refusing to launch a public inquiry called for by families, Aboriginals, and provincial premiers. Why is it turning its back on this story? And will the Prime Minister at least attend the roundtable today? I would call on my colleague to respond. Will the Prime Minister attend this roundtable, yes or no?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you are aware, Minister for Aboriginal Affairs and the Minister for Status of Women are attending the roundtable today. There have been more than 40 studies into the plight of murdered and missing Aboriginal women, and now is not the time for studies, it is a time for action, and the Minister has tabled an action plan in September. Our government has taken strong action to address the broader problems facing Aboriginal women. We will continue to listen to those families and deliver programs that help them most. And again, it would be nice if the member opposite would support those initiatives that help women and girls.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby, New Westminster.
The Conservatives want us to rush Bill C-51 through committee without asking any questions and without respecting democratic rules. And yet when the Prime Minister announced Bill C-51 before a partisan crowd, he said, and I quote, "The first and most critical aspect of parliamentary oversight is what's important." Why does the Prime Minister refuse to have us study Bill C-51 in depth? What does he have to hide?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Public Safety.
Thank you. That question is absolutely false. Mr. Speaker, it was the opposition party, the NDP, the filibuster yesterday that delayed the committee coming to an agreement on the number of meetings. We were more than accommodating. We actually finally agreed on more than 50 witnesses coming to this particular legislation to speak to it. That's extremely critical. On this side of the House, we're looking forward to hearing from that expert testimony, including both the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness and the Minister of Justice.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby, New Westminster.
Over 100 of Canada's leading law professors wrote to the government today saying they have to amend it or kill the bill. How many of those law professors are going to be cut out because this government doesn't respect principles of law and justice, and they don't want to study on C-51. Now, the fact is, Conservatives are fighting so hard to avoid scrutiny on this bill, and that is a disservice to Canadians. This open letter from Canada's leading law professors raises even greater concerns about this dangerous piece of legislation. What are they hiding? Why are they so afraid to subject this overreaching new law to proper scrutiny?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians do not expect parliamentarians to waste days debating schedules of when to hear from witnesses. We spent more than 10 hours in committee trying to come to some sort of an agreement. We were more accommodating. We are looking forward to more than 50 expert witnesses coming to committee to hear this. But, Mr. Speaker, let me tell you one of the good measures of this bill. And this is hard to believe for Canadians, because they would expect that when one branch of government hears information pertinent to national security, that they could communicate that to our national security agencies. That is not the case today. Canadians would be shocked. This bill is going to correct it, and that NDP member needs to stop filibustering and let us get
order.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, 6 young people left Quebec in January to travel to Syria. The police forces think that they have joined jihadist groups. Their parents tried to stop them to no avail, and now the parents feel abandoned. Why are the Conservatives doing nothing to help parents who are concerned about the radicalization of their children?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the member is correct. During this week, during committee filibuster by the NDP, debating upon how many witnesses that we should hear from, we actually heard from stories just like this of many Canadians have gone overseas to engage or join ISIL. Mr. Speaker, there are measures in this bill that will give our national security agencies the ability to intervene, to disrupt terrorist travel. We also have measures in this bill that will change the Passenger Protect program that will allow no board orders to be issued in the very instances just like this member is talking about.
Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, we know that education allows for the prevention of radicalization, but the Conservatives still have not pledged to support the Global Partnership for Education several months after the replenishment conference that was held in June. And yet this partnership has proven its mettle. So why is the government dragging its feet in this matter? Is it waiting for the opportunity to do self-serving advertising instead of helping children and young people now?
Secretary for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, recently we have seen attacks in Copenhagen, in Paris, in Australia, right here in Canada, right here in this Parliament on October 22nd of last year. That is why this government is standing shoulder to shoulder with our allies fighting against the global fight against terrorism, and why we are conducting airstrikes in Iraq. Mr. Speaker, ISIL is a terrorist scourge. We are degrading what they are trying to do in that region. They've also put Canada on a list of countries to carry out jihadist attacks against. That is why we brought forward C-51, and I am looking forward to hearing from each of those 51.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie.
Speaker, my question was about the GPE. Anyhow, the Minister for International Development has said that Canada's job is to ensure that children are able to keep learning and that no child should be left behind as a result of the ongoing crisis in Iraq. Yet, the pledging conference for the Global Partnership for Education took place over 8 months ago, and Canada has yet to make a pledge. Are the Conservatives really waiting for an opportunity for self-serving big press conference rather than helping these kids now?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for
Canada has
National
been
Development.
deeply committed to ensuring that children get education. We continue to work with our partners globally on these issues and look for ways that we can help. We have been one of the largest contributors to helping in Iraq to make sure that the children there are being taken care of, in Syria as well. And we look at the great success that we've had in Afghanistan with getting the number of girls into schools. Millions of girls in school today who were never there before. We are watching with our allies. We will continue to do that, and we will put our money where it gets the best effect.
The honourable member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We heard the sad news yesterday that Ernest Cote, a Second World War D-Day veteran, passed away at age 101. And now, Mr. Speaker, we need to be there to better help our veterans today. Like the story of Master Corporal Paul Franklin, who lost both his legs in Afghanistan. And unbelievably, Veterans Affairs has required him yearly to prove he has no legs. Yesterday, we learned he is once again being asked to prove he's disabled. Can the minister explain this callous incompetence?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Veterans Affairs is engaged and is committed to improving the services for veterans. And in fact, when this issue first came to light, he made a personal phone call to this veteran to determine the nature of the problem. As a result of veterans' feedback several weeks ago, the minister asked for this process to be reviewed. On behalf of the Minister of Veterans Affairs, I am pleased to inform this House that the VIP renewal will move to a 3-year cycle instead of a 1-year cycle. Veterans will also have 6 months to complete this renewal, which is significantly longer than they have today. The form and the letter will also be updated for simplicity and to promote wellness. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for London, Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, under these Conservatives, veterans have endured failure after failure. Enough is enough. Veterans are struggling. They are still struggling, Mr. Speaker, to access the services they need and deserve. And nothing could be more emblematic of this government's indifference than the struggles of Master Corporal Paul Franklin. He's trying to access his disability benefits. When will Conservatives finally take action so that retired Master Corporal Franklin doesn't have to prove yet again that he has lost his legs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We thank Corporal Franklin for his service to Canada, and we are here to help him and veterans like him across Canada. Mr. Speaker, the NDP have voted against every single initiative that we have brought forward to actually help our veterans in concrete ways. To give you an example, our Conservative government is delivering on new frontline mental health treatment facilities. We're delivering enhanced financial benefits to veterans, and we're supporting them in retraining and rehabilitation. Through 8 budgets, our government has earmarked over $5 billion in new funding to improve the benefits and services that we provide to veterans and their families, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Abitibi James Nunavik.
1,200 missing and murdered Aboriginal women are joining the National Roundtable today in good faith. But instead, they will have to face the status of women minister. Simplistic blaming of the communities and Indigenous men will not excuse our own government's inaction in this file, Mr. Speaker. With all the evidence we have, how can this government still think that this is not a sociological crisis and refuse to call for a national public inquiry?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Status of Women.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I've said before, we don't need a national inquiry. We need an action plan that the minister tabled in September. We need the police to catch those responsible and ensure they are punished. Since coming to office, Mr. Speaker, this government has taken action. We've passed more than 30 criminal justice and public safety initiatives, including tougher sentences for murder, kidnapping, sexual assault, and mandatory prison sentences for the most serious crimes. And, Mr. Speaker, it's a shame that the opposition votes against them every single time we try to do something for women and girls in this country.
The honourable member for Abitibi James Nunavik. Mr. Speaker, the Legal Strategy Coalition on Violence Against Indigenous Women has reviewed the 440 studies that the Conservatives constantly talk about on this matter, and they confirmed that almost none of the 700 recommendations that have been made over the past 2 decades have been implemented, especially the unanimous recommendation to hold a national public inquiry. Mr. Speaker, why is this government resisting these calls? Why?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government has already taken significant action in this area, and it's important to remember that many of these recommendations are outside the federal jurisdiction. But, Mr. Speaker, since coming to office, we've passed more than 30 criminal justice and public safety initiatives that I just mentioned, including tougher sentences for murder, sexual assault, kidnapping, and mandatory prison sentences for the most serious crimes. And again, Mr. Speaker, the opposition votes against them.
The honourable member for Markham, Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, gridlock in the 905 is not only a drag on the economy, it keeps families separated for longer every day. Instead of supporting our commuters, the Conservatives cut the Building Canada Fund by nearly 90% for the next 2 years. What is their real priority, Mr. Speaker? Ads costing more than $100,000 a pop during the Oscars last weekend. Why is the government turning their back on York Region and the 905 to fund their own self-promotion?
Only families.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Infrastructure and Community.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In actual fact, since our Conservative government took office in 2006, Canada has consistently ranked at the very top of the list of all G7 countries with respect to investments in infrastructure as a percentage of GDP. Contrast that to the Liberal years, Mr. Speaker, when Canada was at the bottom of the list. Clearly, we had a decade of darkness, not only for defence, but for infrastructure as well under the Liberals.
The honourable member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister scored a rare double-double last week. He managed to damage both the economy and the environment. By betting on Congress rather than listening to the most powerful man on earth, he lost Keystone XL. Simultaneously, he made a 44% cut to Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency. He also cut Sustainable Development Technology Canada. He also cut Species at Risk, Meteorological Services. Mr. Speaker, shouldn't double-doubles be best served at Tim Hortons?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Speaker, it's well known that the main estimates are exactly that, estimates, and they don't represent departments' total budgets for the year. Our government will remain committed to a strong environmental assessment process. In fact, we've increased fundings and opportunities for Aboriginal consultations, public participation throughout the environmental assessment process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Mr. Speaker, just when Alberta and Canada could use an economic boost, the Prime Minister cancels a meeting with the President because he knows that the President will ask him about our ever-increasing GHG emissions. He should know that the President is also a serious basketball player. The PM lined up with a dysfunctional team of climate change deniers in Congress, and the President dunked them both. Mr. Speaker, is that what the Conservative Party means by an economic action plan?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, we'll take no lessons from the Liberal Party as far as greenhouse gases. Under their watch, greenhouse gas emissions increased 100 or over 30%, 130 megatons. Mr. Speaker, our government's record is clear. We have taken decisive action on the environment while protecting our economy. We've seen under our watch since 2005, Mr. Speaker, that greenhouse gases have decreased 5.1%, while the economy has grown 10.6%. And on that side of the House, Mr. Speaker, that member and his party is supporting the NDP climate change bill that would decrease greenhouse gas emissions 80%, which means they'd shut down the oil and gas sector, the transportation sector, electricity.
The honourable member for Beaches, East York.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative plan for ending door-to-door mail delivery has been a disaster. Residents are plagued by thefts by snow-covered and frozen community mailboxes. Cities are stuck with the costs. Hundreds of cities right across this country, big and small, including my own city of Toronto, have called upon the government to abandon this plan. And now, postal workers have launched a court challenge. Montreal says it will join that lawsuit. When will the Conservatives abandon this plan and restore door-to-door mail delivery?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, the plan is Canada Post's 5-point plan. They are an independent Crown corporation.
And Mr. Speaker, they're dealing with a situation where they are now delivering 1.2 billion fewer pieces of mail in 2013 than they did just in 2006, Mr. Speaker. The member well also knows that 2/3 of Canadians currently don't receive door-to-door delivery. We expect Canada Post to operate on a financially self-sustaining basis, as is the law, Mr. Speaker. We expect nothing less than that.
The honourable member for Louis-Hébert. Mr. Speaker, the Quebec Union of Municipalities, which represents some 300 municipalities, is considering going to court to fight the end of home mail delivery and the installation of community mailboxes. Mayors have had enough of the government's cavalier attitude. This is a government that goes ahead without consultation. Will the government listen to reason and reinstate home mail delivery?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, in 2013, Canada Post delivered 1.2 billion fewer pieces of mail than in 2006. 2/3 of Canadians do not receive door-to-door mail. Canada Post must have a balanced budget without imposing a burden on Canadian taxpayers, and we expect nothing less, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Hochelaga. The end of home mail delivery and the installation of community mailboxes is turning into a real nightmare for municipalities. The Mayor of Montreal is ready to go to court to fight Canada Post's plan. He's called out the cavalier and grotesque attitude of the Crown Corporation and is calling on the Conservative government to immediately impose a moratorium. Will the government finally listen to Canadians and local officials and reinstate home mail delivery?
Mr. Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, Canada Post is an independent Crown Corporation and it's responsible for its own operations. That includes its commercial and financial decisions. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are choosing other means than letters to communicate amongst themselves. Given the drop in demand, the volume or the amount of mail being sent has dropped by about 25% since 2008. And that trend is maintained. Canada Post could lose up to $1 billion a year by 2020 without a change. The honourable member for Hochelaga. If the Conservatives had taken the time to consult Canadians and municipalities, we wouldn't be here today. The installation of community mailboxes has been completely botched. What's more, Canada Post isn't keeping its promises. Snow around the boxes isn't being cleared, they're covered with graffiti, and they're surrounded by garbage. Canadians aren't happy, businesses aren't happy, and municipalities aren't happy. What will it take before the government ends the lunacy at Canada Post?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, Canada Post has a responsibility, obviously, in the conversion to community mailboxes, to be doing their consultations with community, as well as to take the important measures to ensure that the areas in front of community mailboxes are kept clear. We expect them to hold to their responsibilities, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Ancaster, Dundas, Flamborough, Westdale.
Mr. Speaker, following the tragic attacks here in Ottawa last year, as well as St. Jean-sur-Richelieu, we're reminded of the magnitude of the threat that terrorism poses to us and all Canadians. Today, the International Financial Action Task Force that combats terrorist financing has announced it will be pressuring governments that are failing to combat the flow of cash to the ISIL death cult. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance please update the House on the steps the government has taken to combat terrorist financing in Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from Ancaster, Dundas, Flamborough, Westdale for that excellent question. Since elected, our government has taken numerous steps to combat terrorist financing. This includes strengthening FinTrack's ability to disclose threats to Canadian law enforcement agencies. We are pleased that the International Financial Action Task Force has endorsed our government's anti-money laundering and anti-terrorist financing regime. Canadians should remain vigilant and always report any suspicious activities to police immediately. The NDP and the Liberals have voted against our efforts to combat terrorist financing. We call on them to start supporting our efforts to protect Canadians.
The honourable member for Berthier, Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, since 2002, employment in the manufacturing and production sector in Mauricie has dropped by over 50%. That's a loss of 12,000 jobs in Mauricie. In 2014, Trois-Rivières was the only metropolitan region in Canada where GDP dropped. Mauricie needs investment and economic diversification. And yet, the government has cut the budget at Canada Economic Development for Quebec by 27%. Mr. Speaker, why is the government abandoning the people of Mauricie?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Economic Development Agency of Canada for Quebec is working in all the regions of Quebec with local economic stakeholders in each region for economic diversification. We are on the ground. We are studying requests from all the regions. We study them. Mauricie has sent its request, and we will follow up on them. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. In the last 9 years, 400,000 good-paying manufacturing jobs have disappeared. That's the reality, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives have abandoned middle-class families while helping the richest 15% in the country. Meanwhile, CED's Regional Economic Development Program has been cut by $13 million. These are the numbers, Mr. Speaker. $13 million fewer dollars for development in our communities. Will the minister step out from behind the camera and get to work diversifying our local economies? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since 2006, the Economic Development Agency for Canada has invested over $1 billion in all the regions of Quebec. We're present everywhere with 14 regional offices, and we will continue to work on economic diversification throughout Quebec. The Honourable Member for Montmagny-Lillet, Kamouraska-Rivière-du-Loup. What useless answers. Not only have there been cuts at the Economic Development Agency for Quebec, but government documents also show that the Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario has also lost 15% of its funding. The government's economic record is already in a shambles. Last year, 14,000 jobs were lost in the Lower St. Lawrence in retail, and now they want to continue leading Canadians into the abyss. Will the minister realize that our regions need a boost and that these cuts will threaten the creation of jobs for middle-class Canadians? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Economic Development Agency for Quebec and Canada is there. It's present across Quebec, and I invite the opposition members to work for economic development in their own regions, and maybe that would help their region out. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles, order. Yesterday, the Minister of Canadian Heritage was patting herself on the back for progress in the area of official languages. But the reality, however, is that French-language television programming outside of Quebec is slowly disappearing. Even Habs games aren't available in French for Francophones from coast to coast. The Federation of Francophone and Acadian Communities is sounding the alarm. Will the minister support our request for a committee study of television programming across the country and respect the rights of the Francophone minority? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday at the Official Languages Committee, we received a request from the NDP to look at this issue, and we will study the question and we will move forward.
For Humber, St. Barb, Bayvex.
Mr. Speaker, we know the Marine Atlantic's 2015 corporate plan has not yet been approved by Cabinet, and until then, the Crown Corporation's operating budget is very uncertain. The company has said there is absolutely no doubt that Cabinet will approve their 5-year plan before the delivery of the Finance Minister's budget, and full details of their funding will be available this spring. Will the Finance Minister confirm the 5-year corporate plan will indeed be approved in this time frame, that more money will be in the budget for Marine Atlantic, and that this funding will be no less than last year's allocation?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, obviously budgets wait until budgets are actually revealed, Mr. Speaker, but what I can tell the member is that Marine Canada, it's this government that has made substantial investments in Marine Atlantic. They have done so on a major capital program, which is just winding up, Mr. Speaker, and we continue to ensure that they have operational funding that they need to deliver the quality service to Atlantic Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Laurent-Cartierville. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Why in Quebec is the government ignoring process and treating the regions of Quebec unfairly. It is funding a natural gas distribution line in Thetford Mines. That's good, but it refuses to do the same for Lévis-Bellechasse. This despite the good work done by the Bellechasse Natural Gas Coalition, whose project has the support of municipalities, chambers of commerce, the CLDs, and the MRCs, among others. Why are the Conservatives treating our regions in such an arbitrary way?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Liquefied natural gas has the potential to diversify our markets and energy product offering and energy markets, creating jobs and economic growth for Canadians. Our responsible resource development plan includes a world-class independent regulatory process that makes decisions based on science and facts and provides for clear timelines, reduces duplication to strengthen investor confidence in energy projects. That said, decisions respecting the development of liquefied natural gas rest primarily with the province, and we respect their jurisdiction.
Honourable Member for Ottawa Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives' plans for a monument to victims of communism has drawn criticism from Canada's Chief Justice, the Mayor of Ottawa, Canada's leading architecture and design experts, and local MPs and local elected representatives. All parties support a memorial to remember those silenced by tyranny and honour those who fought for change. But Ottawa residents and their representatives were not consulted on the location, size, and the design of the memorial. When building a monument to victims of communism, why is this government ignoring democratic consultation?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister
Speaker,
of
that's
Heritage.
absolutely not true. Consultation has taken place on this monument, and the fact that it is brought forward by the organizations involved should be respected by the member across. And the memorial will honour more than 100 million lives lost under communist regimes, pay tribute to the Canadian ideas of liberty, freedom, democracy, and human rights. Our government committed to honouring the victims of communism in our speech from the throne in 2010. And, Mr. Speaker, we look forward to fulfilling that commitment.
The Honourable Member for Ottawa Centre.
Mr. Speaker, on another Ottawa issue, Ottawa Police Services are asking the government for funds to recover costs from the Parliament Hill shooting and for a renewal of the $2 million that they received in 2009 in recognition for their crucial role in keeping the federal government safe. Ottawa's police services face a unique challenge. Protecting the national capital is a huge cost to our city. This should not compromise the safety of the wider Ottawa community. Will the federal government give the City of Ottawa the support it needs to keep our community safe?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we think back to October 22nd, I think most of us in this room today can recall the events that took place here in Parliament, outside, just out front on the streets as well. We were very thankful for the work that was done by all various levels of policing agencies, whether it was the Ottawa Police, whether it was the RCMP, and of course our security right here inside the Hill. Mr. Speaker, I will take that question under advisement to the Minister.
The Honourable Member for Prince Edward Hastings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The terrorist group ISIL is already responsible for countless heinous and barbaric war crimes. Now it appears they are intent on erasing the record of an entire civilization from the history books. A new video has shown ISIL thugs destroying ancient and priceless Mesopotamian statues and other Assyrian Christian artifacts in northern Iraq. And the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Northern Affairs, please provide Canada's reaction to the destruction of these priceless artifacts.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, this part of the world is called the cradle of civilization. These priceless artifacts belong to all of humanity. They tell us something about who we are and where we come from. For these barbarians to so wantonly destroy a part of human history in an attempt to wipe out an entire people is offensive to the core. Canada strongly condemns this barbarism. This is why the Canadian Armed Forces are there. We will not sit on the sidelines while an entire civilization is extinguished, not just from the earth, but from history itself.
The Honourable Member for Sydney, Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, municipalities across this country continue to find a financial black hole where federal infrastructure funding should be. This government is all talk when it comes to infrastructure spending. In the Cape Breton Regional Municipality alone, $400 million worth of wastewater system upgrades are required. Will this government finally live up to its responsibility, bring the money to the table so we can get the job done, keep our water safe, and get our people back to work?
Good question.
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In actual fact, Mr. Speaker, as a Conservative government, our investments in infrastructure are 3 times higher than the previous Liberal government, Mr. Speaker. In addition to being at the top of the list of all G7 countries with respect to investments in infrastructure, I'm also very pleased to report to the House that under our Conservative government, the average age of public infrastructure in Canada is now at its lowest level since 1980, Mr. Speaker. With the New Building Canada plan, this progress will continue, creating jobs, prosperity for all Canadians.
Honourable Member for Dauphin, Swan River, Marquette.
Mr. Speaker, Bill C-18, the Agricultural Growth Act, is a bill designed to modernize and strengthen federal agricultural legislation, support innovation in the Canadian agriculture industry, and enhance global market opportunities. Unfortunately, the NDP must oppose all of these positive items because they voted against the bill. Mr. Speaker, could the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture please provide an update on this important piece of legislation?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member from Dauphin, Swan River, Marquette for that important question. And I'm pleased to report to the House that Bill C-18, the Agriculture Growth Act, received royal assent this week. The bill will strengthen intellectual property rights for plant varieties, reduce red tape, improve how government carries out its business with the Canadian agriculture industry, enhance trade, and grow Canada's economy. And importantly, Mr. Speaker, the bill also includes farmers' privilege, which explicitly permits farmers to use seeds from the crops they grow. Mr. Speaker, it is absolutely shocking that the official opposition voted against this bill.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Start that again. Yeah. I've had too many parliamentary secretaries up today. The Honourable Member for Thunder Bay, Superior North.
Mr. Speaker, Thunder Bay's acute care hospital has been in gridlock for years. On January 26th, the hospital, designed for 375 acute care beds, had 469 patients stacked up in public hallways. Tommy Douglas worked with the Liberals to create a world-leading system funded 50% by the feds. The Fed share now is less than half of that. Do the Conservatives have a plan to restore and renew our healthcare system?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, that is absolutely an absurd statement. We have the highest recorded healthcare transfer dollars right now in history. Since forming government, the transfers to the provinces have gone up by 70%, and it's going to meet $40 billion annually. So we have committed to increasing transfers year after year, and I'm very proud of our government's record in terms of the transfers, unlike the Liberals, who for many years balanced their budget on the backs of the provinces.
The Honourable Member for Verchères-les Patriotes. Mr. Speaker, after the Special Rapporteur on Aboriginal Rights from the UN, it's now Amnesty International that is criticizing Canada for its treatment of Aboriginal people. The government refuses to hold a public inquiry on murdered and missing Indigenous women. And the report also denounces the deplorable living conditions on reserve. Will the federal government finally hold an inquiry, and will it take concrete measures to improve living conditions on First Nations, or will it once again hide its head in the sand?
Secretary to the Minister of
Thank you,
the Women.
Speaker. No, we won't support a national inquiry. We have an action plan which was tabled in September that we support on this side of the House because it helps Aboriginal women and girls. This action plan provides the tools and resources needed for preventing violence and supporting community-level solutions. It supports Aboriginal victims with appropriate services, and it protects Aboriginal women and girls by investing in shelters and continuing to improve Canada's law enforcement and justice systems. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we stand up to protect the rights of Aboriginal women and girls. Every time we move to safeguard these rights, the opposition members vote against them.
The Honourable Member for Thunder Bay, Superior North.
Mr. Speaker, not just in Thunder Bay, but all across Canada, we have seniors stacked up like cordwood in cots in hallways without comfort or dignity. This is a problem all across Canada for 3 reasons: inadequate federal funding, aging parents waiting hopelessly for long-term care and home care, and we're the only G20 country with no national health care strategy. When will the Conservatives commit to investing in long-term and preventative health care?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I have talked already in terms of the increase in transfers to the provinces that are going to be year after year. But I think it's also important to look to a commitment to innovation in the healthcare system, because the reality is more money is not going to be the only thing that we need to do to fix inefficiencies. And I want to take a quote from Brad Wall. He says, "This can no longer be just about money. We've got to find ways to ensure that healthcare is here for future generations, that it is sustainable without sacrificing patient care." We're a partner with the provinces. We've got to move forward. Thank you.
That concludes question period for today.
Moving to orders of the day. Routine business, tabling of documents. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
J'ai l'honneur de déposer dans
the honor to table in both official languages a treaty called the World Wine Trade Group Agreement on Wine Labeling. And there is an explanatory note with the document.
Tabling of documents. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 36.8, I have the honour to table in both official languages the government's response to 10 petitions.
That's it. Tabling of documents. Dépôt de projet de loi émanant du gouvernement.
Introduction of government